Before we start today, I'm going to give you, those of you who've been around Mike for a while, Mike likes to have something called ish. He calls them ishes. And you may have heard them, and we're going to talk about them. We're going to talk about one today that it's been a while since I've talked about it, so we're going to bring it up today. It might help you out when people are saying, what do you think my payment would be? We'll give you some ish that you can use to make that work. So we'll go through that in a little bit. But to begin with, I have a question for all of you. And, you know, the Federal Reserve is talking about they want to slow things down. They want to get a curb on inflation. They want to do all of this. What have you seen in the past, let's call it 2 to 4 weeks, in the marketplace with buyers and sellers? What are you hearing from them? What are you seeing? Fill me in. Tell me what you're experiencing with your buyers and sellers.
So on the buyer side, the showings are not like it was last year where the lines are so long. It's much easier to get in and get out. However, by the time I speak to the agent, there's definitely already multiple offers. Some of them are out of range for my clients even be able to over ask. But I am seeing that the opportunity is starting to shift a little bit. And so with the buyers that I'm working with, I'm just like, okay, well, you know, we do have to keep looking and be on it, because as soon as it comes out day one, it's almost under contract day two.
Okay. So, Linear?
I think the higher price points are getting a little tight. I think maybe some folks that were looking at Doug and I were talking about this morning, but if they were in the 6s and 7s, they might now be in the 5s. If they were in the 5s, they might be in the 4s.
You mean the buyer themselves, the buyer side, just because of everything that's gone on with interest rates and pricing and, okay.
If they're in the 5s now, the same payment, they have to be in 4s.
Yeah, okay. All right.
I see that also prices aren't going as high as they used to. So like 10% was like common, and now you don't see list prices going higher than 10%.
Okay. So list prices, the people are not spending 50, they're not going 15, 20, 25% over list right now like they were several months ago. Okay.
2 months ago.
I think maybe a little less appetite for the well, who knows what overpriced is now, but not as show perfect homes. I mean, 6 months ago, it didn't matter what it looked like, didn't matter what it photographed like. Now I think the really, really good homes are still incredibly competitive, but the ones that are a notch below are sitting a little longer.
And then it'd probably be interesting to see the stats of days on market, because I know a month or two ago it was like 5 or 6, but I don't feel it's the same now. I see houses that are sitting on the market longer.
Okay,
And
sitting on.
prices are reducing, like, I think the sellers are thinking they can get too much. Yeah, price reductions are becoming more.
Yep, Chris?
I don't think prices are being reduced. What's going on is we're starting to have a correction in the market. And so we're not gonna have a crash, and the reducing is people overprice their houses. So now they're coming to some reality where we're gonna have to start pricing the houses correctly. And that's what's going on.
Okay. Anybody else? What is the gut feeling from, let's talk about sellers. What's the gut feeling on sellers right now when you're talking to them, or somebody that's a potential seller? What are they saying to you about their expectation? How's that changing for them?
I think there's more urgency now from the ones I've talked to. We better get this done quick because we don't know what the next 6 months is
Okay,
gonna look
that's a good point. Anybody else?
Some people are waiting to hold off to see what will happen with interest rates.
Okay.
I agree with Lanier. I spoke with the lady yesterday. She wants to put her house out in the market in July, and she thinks she may have missed the opportunity to sell 40, 50,000, and she may be correct, but her house was a very nice house that will still sell above price, just not as high as we've been seeing.
Okay. Anybody else? What about buyers? What are they? Go ahead.
For sellers, I don't think it's that they missed out on maxing out their price. It's what they can get to buy, because you're paying more in price and payment. It used to be more in price but lower payment.
Right.
Now it's both.
Right. Okay, good point. What are buyers saying to you? What's your conversation? Let me put it this way. how is the conversation with a buyer different today than it might have been 3 months ago?
So I have a client under contract right now who wants to back out because he thinks because interest rates are going up, less people are gonna offer, and he will be able to purchase the house without offering so much.
Okay, all right. Anybody else? How's the conversation different with buyers today than it might have been 3 months ago?
More buyers are willing to wait.
They're willing to wait,
They're
okay?
Feeling like they're, at least my conversation, they're feeling like there's just no room for them, especially below the price point, as you said. And so, they're willing to wait and hold off, and they're hoping that it's going to be a crash of foreclosures like before, and they'll get in at a much lower price for a bigger house.
Okay,
That's their hope.
all right. Anybody else? All right, before I go into the issues, I got to just share some because I don't talk to sellers. Well, I do talk to sellers because some of my buyers are sellers, but most of them are buyers. The conversation in the last 2 weeks has changed somewhat dramatically almost. With a gentleman that I closed a loan for a little over a year ago, and he's now up to look to sell that one and buy another one, and he can afford it. And it's not a big deal, except that, and he can afford it. But his conversation with me this morning was reminiscent of what I've had the last 2 weeks, is Greg, I'm looking at this thinking, my gosh, I currently have an interest rate of 3.125% that you gave me last year, and now you're saying I'm gonna be in the high fives. And I said, yes. And he said, oh my gosh. That's just hard for me to accept. Now, I have to tell you, a few months ago, even though interest rates had gone into the high, mid, high fours, low fives, that really wasn't much of a conversation. That, people still wanted the house more than they wanted anything else. But now, all of a sudden, you start thinking about rates at 5.75. This morning, I quoted somebody 6 1/8. Because they've got a little bit lower credit score, and so rates high on that. You start thinking about that, and right away, both conversations this morning, I just may not want to do this right now. So that's what I'm hearing from them. So much like what you are, I'm hearing it from them. So people ask you, and they ask me, what do you think I should do? What do you say to them?
Go for it.
Buy it.
Buy it. Why?
Well, irrelevant of the market, people are always gonna buy and sell. The problem is rental rates are going even higher. So now you're
Faster, right?
you're wasting money paying rental when you can actually gain some type of equity.
Sure, okay.
If
Somebody else, what do you say to them when they say that?
If they're looking to sell too, it's every dollar you save on the buyer side, you're gonna lose on the seller side. And there's no such thing as buy low, sell high. If you get more money for your house, you're gonna spend more money on the next house
Right.
and vice versa.
Anybody? Steve?
I think people tend to think that interest rates will be low when the housing market crashes, and it's like if interest rates are low and the housing market crashes, people are gonna drive back in, and the same thing's gonna happen again. Everyone's gonna outbid everyone else, and prices are gonna drive back up, so it's nonsensical.
All right, anybody else?
I mean, it's something similar. They always say that, market's gonna crash. And I was like, okay, tell me how, when? When's it gonna happen?
Next week.
So if you don't know, why are you continuing to tell me that it's gonna crash and you should wait to buy later? Like you should have waited last fall?
It appears we're all hearing much of the same, I call it talk or rhetoric, that from buyers and sellers and just they're saying all this stuff. And I'm no expert on it. I mean, I wish I were, because if I were, then we'd be on a Zoom call while I'm on some exotic island having an umbrella drink having this call with you. But there are some facts. So people are asking me, just like they're asking you, what should I do? And I ask them, why are you moving? If they've already picked out a house, do you like the house? What do you like about the house? So although I eventually want to get to where Chris is at and say, just do it, if I do that, it kind of puts up, in my case anyway, it puts up a little bit of a defense. And so I got to slack off just a little bit. And so I ask them a series of questions. First of all, why do you want to buy? And if they've already picked out a house, then why do you want this house? Tell me about the house a little bit. So give me the address. Let me look it up. And we start looking it up. And I start asking them about the house, much like I'm sure you probably do. But the idea of it is, I want to get them away from the rhetoric and get them into some logic. Not a lot of logic, but a little bit of logic. And here's what I mean, and you've kind of went around this a little bit. The first logic is people who say there's going to be a crash. I mean, why is there going to be a crash? I mean, why? And, well, it's got to be. Anything that goes up has got to come back down. How many times has that happened in the last 50 years in the American home selling market? It's happened once. Thank you, Manuel. One time. That's it. So why are we going to crash again? What were the things that happened in before 2007, 8, 9, and 10 that are going on today? And the answer to that is nothing. So something new is going on. Is what's new going on exaggerated inflation? Is that going to cause the housing market to crash? No, it's not going to crash. Hey, you folks, most of you weren't even here in the late 70s and early 80s. But I was, and I was buying homes then. And inflation was crazy, interest rates were crazy, and guess what? There was no crash. We were still buying homes. Builders were still building. We were still buying. What is the largest buying group in the country right now? Millennials. Are they buying move-ups, move-downs, or first homes? Most of them are buying first homes. There was an article this morning that I read that said first-time buyers are driving the demand in the marketplace. And I read that and I thought, somebody has got their facts right. We've never had a buying group, and you've heard me say this several times over the last couple of months, we've never had a buying group as big as the one we've got right now with the millennials and the older Gen Zs. Never had a buying group this big. This group is millions bigger than it was when baby boomers, when I was in there. So we've got this large buying group, so the demand is created in a real sense by just the number of people that want to have a home. If you even want to take it one step further, you got all these old baby boomers like me who are thinking, maybe I should sell and size down. Have you got anybody in their late 50s, 60s, early 70s that's considered selling to buy down? Of course. And the baby boomers were the second biggest market in the history of this country. So you've got the demand from the first-time home buyers, millennials and older Gen Zs. You got the second largest market we've ever had in baby boomers who are making transitions. Oh my gosh. Somebody said something about rents. Who was it? Chris, you're talking about rents. Chris, you couldn't be more right. That's exactly what's happening. Rents are flying up faster than interest rates, faster than home prices, faster than anything. So as a result of that, the demand is not going away. The demand is still here. Now, what we have to do, and this is where I want to get into the issues, as Mike likes to call them. This is where we've got to have, talking points. Does any buyers or even a seller that's thinking about buying, do they ever say to you, how much you think my payment will be if I'm going to get a mortgage of this size? And one of the first things you and I do is we take out a mortgage calculator, or we take out one of those calculator sheets, or we do some of this, we do some of that. And I'm going to give you the ish this morning that some of you have heard me talk about before. You don't have to, this makes you and me look like we're really, really good. A 300, well, you can just take this. If the interest rate is 6.0, the principal and interest payment is going to be 6 times the number of thousands. So in other words, if I've got a home that I'm going to carry a $300,000 mortgage on, and my interest rate is going to be 6%, that means my principal and interest payment is 300 times 6, $1,800. It might be a couple pennies different, but that's basically what it is. So the first ish is at 6%, the number is $6. It's actually $5.99, call it 6. That's where Mike has his issues. I like that. Now, at 5.5%, it's $5.65 per thousand. So $100,000 means it's going to be $565. If it's 200,000, take 200 times 565. 600,000 times 5.65. That's going to be my principal and interest payment. If interest rates should, I can't even believe I'm going to say these next words. If interest rates should go back down to 5%, it sounds crazy. Now we're looking at $5.35. So that gives you a number and me a number to use so that when someone says to us, how much is my payment going to be? Oh my gosh, okay. And you're sitting there trying to figure out, looking at the little thing, sliding the chart or whatever you do. And now you can just throw out, okay, $5.65 times whatever number you're going to have in the thousands, I got your principal and interest payment. How much are the taxes? Taxes are going to be what the taxes are. Now, I think it was 2 weeks ago, maybe 3 weeks ago, I talked a little bit about taxes. I won't go into all the detail right now, but I'm going to share with you something. Please, please, please be careful with taxes right now. Because, like, for example, this gentleman I was on the phone with this morning, that he's got a 3 1/8 rate, going to sell the house. He's buying the house from his brother and sister. Their taxes, it's a $525,000 purchase price. And the home is in Alpharetta. And the taxes on the home in 2021 were $3,326. Now, how many sitting in this room really think that a $525,000 Alpharetta Fulton County home is going to maintain taxes at $3,300? Nobody. So buyers have a tendency to want to know, how much are my taxes? So I'm trying to be realistic with them. But what happens? Well, but Greg, I'm looking online, it only says $3,326. And I said, that may be what we use at closing. And I said, but do you really think that the cities and the counties are not going to make some adjustments to their assessments in future years? Well, how much do you think it could be? What number do you use for most of the counties around here, not way up north? Most of the counties around here, what number do you use to calculate an estimate on taxes? Anybody? Okay, I give you an idea. Go ahead. 1%. 1% was the number a lot of us were using for quite some time. Now I'm starting to see, like we used to do years ago, 1.25. If you're in DeKalb, city of Atlanta, it's absolutely 1.25 to 1.5. So it's going up. Now, I'm not trying to scare anybody from buying a house because taxes are going to go up too high, but I want to be realistic because you don't get the phone call. I do. I mean, when their tax bill comes out and their escrow statement comes out and they're looking at it and saying, well, wait a minute, Greg, I thought I had a fixed rate loan. I said, you do have a fixed rate loan, but we don't have fixed taxes. So a conversation needs to be had. So now you got the issue on the principal and interest, but taxes We don't want to scare anybody, but we want to be realistic. Hey, this year, you know, like I told this gentleman this morning, it was 33.26. Let's don't use 180. Let's use 350. That's 4,200. Let's just be safe. Let's just use 350. And I said, but be prepared, because 2023 or 2024, it could be 500 a month. As long as you've got that in your mind, you're fine. He says, I can deal with that. Okay. But so you got to be careful. Insurance, unless they've got a really old home with a really terrible roof on the house and it's got all kinds of issues, your insurance is going to be pretty easy. I mean, I've seen people get $500,000 homes with, I don't know how they do it, but $1,300 annually in insurance. I don't know how. If you're a $500,000 home, I'm usually $2,000 to $2,400, and I'm estimating high. But that gives you something to give them, just like that. When they've got a question, you don't have to start calculating everything. You just know it. And I tell people all the time, you can call me anytime you want. Leah, phone me anytime you want. But you know what? When you're on the street and you're looking at houses and you just want to know what this, just take the $6 times the number of thousands. That's your principal and interest payment. You're looking at the house. Go online, see what the taxes are, as long as they're not something stupid low. Add that to it. Put in a few $100 for, you know, principal for homeowner insurance, and you got your payment.
What's the max you should put in for the homeowner insurance?
I'm sorry?
What's the max you would put in for the homeowner insurance?
That really depends. Good question, Sasha. It really depends on the sales price. My average loan is somewhere, but you know, the average sales price I'm seeing is somewhere between $350 to $550. On those homes, I would say if you're using $2,000 to $2,200, that's on the high side, because you can usually get less than that. $300,000, I probably wouldn't go above 1 1/4. That's $1,500. And I think you're probably going to be pretty safe. So let me leave you with this. The couple of things that I think we've talked about that are important. First thing is that, like you said, people are coming to you now. The conversation is different. These are not the conversations you and I had a year ago. They're not the conversations you and I had 6 months ago, and they're certainly not the conversations we had just 2.5 months ago. So the conversation's changing, which means how we respond, questions that we ask are going to be different than it was. Because if we're having the same conversation today that I had 2 months ago, I'm missing the boat and I'm not serving my client the right way. Does that make sense? So when people are talking to you right now, listen to what they're saying compared to what the same group of people were saying to you 2 months ago and 6 months ago, because the conversation is different. Their desire to buy is not necessarily different. There's just more fear than there was several months and 6 months ago, without question. All right, before we break, any questions? All right, thanks everybody, appreciate it.